Right, on today's episode of the Sly Ed Experience, we discuss turning your skill set into a seven-figure business. My guest is a nurse turned entrepreneur with over 20 years experience in healthcare. She started her nursing agency over 5 years ago. Currently, she staffs nurses nationwide, traveling nurses and permanent placement. She also prides herself on teaching other nurses how to leave their bedside burnout to step into their own entrepreneur journeys. Please welcome my guest, Sophia Bracy, to the show. Hey, sis.
I heard the noise in the background. It was like, nah. How are you?
I'm doing well. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So my first question to you is why did you make this decision? What is your why for doing what you're doing? Actually stepping into a whole new arena outside of the healthcare space. Let's just
Definitely.
put it hands-on healthcare space.
Okay, very hands-on. So basically, obviously, as we talked about, I've been in healthcare for 20 years. I started as a CNA, LPN, RN, and now a family nurse practitioner. So back then, I want to say almost 6 years ago now, I had a baby later in life, which means over 35, for those that don't
Okay.
know,
Okay.
which is considered more high risk, obviously, in today's society. And I had worked in hospital and on and off in agency throughout my nursing career. And, I ended up with this pregnancy. I was high risk. I was very sickly. I got put on bed rest. It was just so much going on. And in that process, my job let me go. So it was just like I was in a place where I had shown up. I was burned out because I worked ICU. And people who don't know, but ICU can burn you out very fast. It's less patient, but it's high acuity, and you deal with a lot of death. And at the point that I left in my career, I was working with younger people, which is a whole nother ball game for trauma. And I was working at a level 1 trauma hospital in Chicago. And I was seeing so much death, so many teens, so much gunshots, so much everything. I was just literally burned out. But the point was, I was still showing up. I was working, picking up shifts, doing anything for the hospital. And in my time of need, they let me go. So that made me realize that it doesn't matter what work I put in. These people only see me as an asset when I can be acceptable to them. You know what I mean? But if something goes on in my personal life, they don't care. So during that time when I was on bed rest, obviously I had to still figure out how to live. And right after I had the baby, I obviously had savings. I've always been a great management of money. That's just, I guess part of my nature. I ended up being on a ground summit that was given by Spectacular from Pretty Ricky. I've seen the email out the blue. Now, mind you, at this point, I don't know anything about business. I've never thought about business. I never even believed I could be an entrepreneur. So that means my mindset was like down here. Nobody in my circle was working. We were just all working nurses, travel nurses, strike nurses, everything. We were just making money doing nursing. And I thought that was good money. Obviously I went to school all this time. So, that's all I pretty much knew. So I just decided to jump on this summit. I don't know what touched my spirit, but it literally came in my email. It was like 28 bucks. I was, scraping for cash at the time, but I said, you know what? Let me get on this summit. And I got on the summit and I got to see nothing but African American faces. And there were
Mhm.
like 10 to 15 speakers per day over a 3-day period. And in that time, I got to witness so many, African American people doing great things in the entrepreneurial space. And they were talking about their businesses and how much money they were making and all of these different things. And it just really obviously opened up my mind. And one person that very much inspired me was him 500, right? Marcus Burney. It was like the credit repair space really spoke to me. My credit was terrible, and he was just dropping gym after gym after gym. So after that, I took all of that information. I actually started following him and a couple of other people, and I actually invested into his mentorship. And I learned so much from that mentorship, how to build my own credit, how to get my own business funding, like not begging the bank for money. And that kind of opened up the whole journey of what skill set do I have? What can I do with this to monetize? I said, I know staffing, I know nursing. I don't want to leave nursing right now, but I don't want to be a bedside nurse. So what can I do where I can still take care of myself, my family, still be able to have a foot into healthcare, but not per se be in a hospital setting? And that's what bore staff and agency.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, because you realize, and I'm a believer too, that when the student is ready, the teacher will show up. So he showed up in your email and you didn't even know how or why. And that's the reason why you were ready for your next step and you didn't even know. So you just jumped out there. And as an entrepreneur, sometimes you get that, like, okay, what's next? So you already knew, your field of nursing, how to do, the thing. So
Mhm,
it's like, okay, now it's time for me to transition, because these people are not actually valuing me and my time. I'm
mhm,
putting all of these effort into, sacrificing my time away from my family. I'm
yep,
getting up, rain, sleet, or snow. And you're like, you know what? When I need you, you let me go. And
mhm,
so it's time to shift the mindset. In the coaching arena, you hear that a lot.
yeah,
And I'm glad you actually said that, because you have to identify, okay, I don't know this thing called entrepreneurship. So I need to go find it. I need to figure this
wow,
thing out. And
correct.
that's the piece first that people fail to realize, is that you have
Mhm,
to work on yourself first before you start the thing. And if you can't actually do anything else to help anybody else, you have to help yourself. I love that. I love that you said that. And then you got the mentor. You invested in yourself. So that's
yeah.
awesome. So how has your journey been since you stepped into your day, from your daily job into ownership, into, I think, what you call your name is Sophia Millions, right?
Yes, Sophia Millions. We're gonna put it out there in the atmosphere.
That's
Every time we
right.
put it
That's
out there,
right.
it's just manifesting it back to me. Well, I will say this. I learned a lot the hard way because when I started, although I had a mentor, that mentor was not in my field. My field was healthcare. That person taught more financial literacy. So I had an aspect of the financial literacy, but I didn't know how to actually run a business. So I went through a period of time where I was doing a lot of self-development, right? And I think the reason why, me being a coach now, I understand why the focus so much is more on mindset, because mindset was for me the absolute hardest thing to tackle, right? Because we talk about the conscious mind, the unconscious mind, all of the things that are up in there from all of this time that you've been living, from the time you were a child brought on up until now. So people who tell you you couldn't be this, you couldn't do this, whatever insecurities you have, whatever self-limiting doubts you have, like all of those things are an absolute must when tackling, when switch over to entrepreneurship. Because a lot of people don't believe that they deserve to be rich. They don't
Right.
believe that they deserve to have money. And you don't even realize your relationship with money until you really start on this journey. Some people just are okay with the bare minimum. And there's no shade, but some people really see money as evil and all of these different things. So I had to really tackle my self-limiting doubts. I had to really tackle my insecurities. I had to really work on my mind shifting, and changing over first and foremost as I was going through the process. And then I had to literally learn how to build a business from scratch, step by step, without any mentor, because there was no one in the space at that point in time. I just had a thought process. I had nowhere to start. Everybody that was doing staffing were large corporations. And they didn't look like me, but on top of that, they were not teaching either. So I learned through a lot of trial and error, a lot of failing, a lot of figuring out how to be sales. I don't know nothing about sales. I'm a nurse. I don't know anything about administrative. I don't know anything about all this back office stuff and websites. So everything started with literally me doing things step by step, me learning, failing, figuring it out, coming back to the drawing board, seeking out, most importantly, where I fall short at, seeking that out in someone else that's strong in that area, but then also truly working on myself and my mindset and switching things around to understand that I deserve to be wealthy. I deserve
Yeah.
to build generational wealth for my children. I deserve to break these generational curses. I deserve to live in abundance in everything that God has meant for me. So that is easier said because it sounds good flowing out of my mouth. But when you really start to dig deep inside, you will really realize that you can say things, but you don't necessarily believe them. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
It
Yeah.
does, absolutely,
Yeah.
100%. So, when you actually were you still working your were you still actually going to work as a nurse while you were starting your staffing agency, or did you let that go?
So when I very first after I had the baby, I did go back to work for a little bit just to kind of get caught up, but it didn't last long. It was like a few months. One thing about I feel like business or when you're taking a big leap of faith or just doing something in life, things just start happening around you, right? The variables. So at that time I was in school. I was trying to work, trying to do the agency, all of that, and I had a parent that passed away. So my dad passed away of
Mm.
cancer. Um, and I was trying to recover from that, but a lot of things fell through because life hits you. Life gives no one leeway. This is life. It's just what it is. And it's not a why me type of situation because I never want to be the victim, but this is just what happened. And then a year later, my mom passed away.
Wow.
So I just had a new baby at a dinosaur age.
You're
And
so
then I
funny.
and then because that's what it literally was like. I had this horrible pregnancy. I just had a baby. I'm trying to recover from all of that mental, that'll weigh on your mental. Then I have a parent die, and then I have another parent die. So those
Yeah,
things really slow me down because I lost two parents and had a new child within 3 years. So that weighs on your mental, and it made me start realizing how important mental health is, not just only for yourself, but things that you surround around you and everything else. So pretty much, yeah.
yeah.
That's where it
So
was.
you didn't just say, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and leave this and step out. You still wanted to make sure that you had something on the side while building the other thing. Because you hear people tell
Right.
you all the time, go, step out there on faith. But at the same time, I always say, well, it worked for some, but is it going to work for you? And you're doing pretty well, but you want me to, they tell you, oh, don't leave your 9 to 5 until you actually. But then when people do it, you see the result faster. Let's be real, but the struggle is real. The struggle is
Gotta be willing to
real.
make some sacrifices, and, it's
Yeah,
good to have your obviously your 9 to 5 while you kinda building, but the reason why they say that and what I teach my students is you're not energy focused at that point in time. So your energy is flowing half somewhere and then it's half somewhere else, and so you're giving, like, 10% of focus to that. It's gonna take a lot longer to build than if you were
yeah,
doing it, like, 100%.
yeah. So, would you recommend someone going into the healthcare staffing agency space that is not a nurse? So, for someone like this, like me, I'm like, hey, this sounds really good. I'm not a nurse. I have no healthcare experiences at all, but I know business. What is your advice to that?
I would say definitely. I mean, the only benefit in my advice, being a nurse and running a healthcare staffing agency is that you can work yourself. So, I teach nurses how to make money three ways in staffing. And a lot of nurses really just want to buy their time back and have more flexibility over their schedule. Some don't necessarily want to leave bedside. So, for me, the benefit is that I can staff myself. I can manage my own contracts, money, rates, different things like that, and still staff and work for myself while still working for a hospital. Someone that is not in healthcare, obviously you can do the exact same thing. You don't have to be a nurse to recruit nurses. You just need to understand the process. You just need to understand how to run the business. Same way it would be with anything. And when it comes to staffing, you can staff a variety of things. Some people staff nurses, but they also staff IT. They
Mhm.
also were staff respiratory therapists, radiologists, MDs. Like there's so many different positions you can staff for. I just would say make sure you niche down to a couple of things so that you're not variety everything, but you can staff almost anything. And you definitely don't need to be a healthcare professional.
So, do you agree with the niche? Because I hear that word a lot in that industry. You want to be focused on one area versus trying to do all the things, the nursing, the healthcare, the business. Do you agree with that? It's saying one thing at a time, or start with healthcare versus actually doing healthcare and business.
I would say one thing at a time for sure. You want to have a
Yeah,
focus for sure because then it'll be easier for you and less stressful, especially while you're trying to build. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to get your first contract? Because I know it's a hustle, it's a grind.
Ooh, it took me probably about 3 or 4 months to get my first contract, and actually my first contract, I got lucky because it was actually with, Blue Cross and Blue Shield. So at that time before COVID, they were doing home visits and they would hire outside agencies in order to do their home visits. So that was my first contract and I was my first employee because I was the visiting nurse. And also, working that contract as I kind of grew, into, obviously where I can have more staff, but that's how I started. Yeah.
Wow. So you didn't have the luxury of getting all of the no's that people talk about. You it was like,
Oh, no,
okay.
I got plenty of no's. Oh, I was
Okay.
definitely doing the cold calling and everything else, and I got plenty of no's. That contract actually came through someone that I knew, so obviously, that's why it's always good. They say it's not what you know, it's who you know, and that's just the
Yeah.
reality. I knew someone, I was reaching out to a bunch of contacts, and the crazy part is when you are a struggling business, you could know, like, Larry Curly Moe that might be in this field, but baby, when you reach out and say that you're in this field now, you see a whole different ball game with those same people. They don't want to talk no more. They ain't got nothing to say. They ain't trying to help. Like, they stop texting, stop picking up the phone, and you like, man, all I did was ask a question. But going through that experience has taught me more than anything that it is, connection over competition. And I'm the type of person that what I've learned, I'm not a hard-headed. God ain't got to keep on smacking me on the pavement for me to get it. And in that process, I learned that I don't want to compete. I don't have to. What God has for me, He has for me. He's going to bless me abundantly, whether I was the only agency or the 5,000th agency. It doesn't matter. So I don't need to compete. In this life, we are to serve. So the goal is to be able to give to others and help them also bring themselves out of their situation because you forget you were once there as well. You may be here now. You may have these
Right.
millions now, but you were
Right.
once where I am. You once had to start somewhere, unless you had a trust fund and all of that. But if you didn't have that, you had to start where I started. So why are you gatekeeping? I'm not saying for
Right.
free. We didn't say free. Now, I didn't say free because a lot of folks want stuff for free. But, you have to be able to teach others and pour into others, not just yourself. So I
I
learned that from those experiences.
I totally agree with that. I think that that's the biggest thing that you could have said is that you have to be able to identify the service piece of it,
Mhm,
and because God wants you to do well, He places us here as creators,
mhm,
and He wants you to succeed. And the funny thing that you just said was you picking up the phone and these people on a rate. If you wanted to gossip, if you had just a random conversation, but now that you actually are doing something that's going to help them or to help yourself,
mhm.
they basically said, you know what? No, this is not it. You're talking a totally different language, and that also tells me too when that happens that they're not on your level and they don't understand it anyway. So it wasn't for you,
Amen to
right?
that.
So what did you have that fear going in when you actually, were placing other nurses in these facilities, that they weren't going to show up or a facility would treat them poorly so they would leave? Because I hear that staffing, when you go into that particular field, it's a hustle, it's a grind, like I said before. But now it's your name. This is your business, and you're entrusting this other individual to show up the way you want them to show up for your company. So tell me a little bit about your thoughts on that.
I think that as a agency owner, but also as a nurse, what I find, first of all, we're all when I say nurse, we're all healthcare professionals, right? So there's an expectation for you to be professional. You went to school, you're not someone that I just found off the street and said, hey, do you want this job? You're not making, little chump change of money. Some nurses were making $10,000 a week during COVID. So, this is money that they desire. This is not just, little rinky dink money where it's like, oh, I can just go in there and just act a fool. And then also you're responsible. So when you're in there, your license counts. So if you don't have license, then that's your bread and butter. So that stops a lot of nurses right there, like right there. But then you have, obviously the bad batch in anything that you do. For me, what I found that worked best as a business owner is connecting with my nurses, having a rapport with my nurses, building a level of trust with my nurses, so that they understand that I see them more than just someone that's working for me or someone that is, making money, but I actually see you as a person. I see you as my fellow nurse. I'm a nurse as well. So, we do surveys and different things now that I've learned to implement as I grow. How did you like this facility? How was your first shift? These things to say, like, how did things go over there? Like, we actually care. We don't just want to send you there because we just want to get paid, but like, how is the ratios over there? Like, are you being treated appropriately? Because in my position, I never want to put a nurse in a predicament where her nurse license could be, at risk. So it's those things. I have a hand on everybody that comes through here as far as talking to, meeting me. I'm a very approachable person. I'm a very understanding person. I'm a very professional person. So I try to introduce myself and meet everyone that comes through the door. And I think that the more you personalize things, the more people want to work with you, and they see your vision like you see your vision, and they tend to handle their role a little bit differently. So I can't say that I've had a lot of bad experiences with that. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but because I used to work for an agency, back in the day, and it was Black owned. And that was actually one of the people I picked up the phone and was like, hey, you mind answering the question? She was like, mm-mm. Yeah, she wasn't going. But they had a lot of ratchetness going on through there. So what I see is, as a leader, obviously, because I'm at the top of the hierarchy, it is the structure and the tone that I set. If I allow that foolishness, that's how that foolishness gonna come in the door. If that foolishness is not allowed and you set your standards high, then it's already known that we can't do that over there at Nurse Links.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I think because that would be my biggest fear is that making sure that the quality I'm sending you quality people, treat them fairly, treat them well, and making sure that okay, my like what you said, I want to make sure that you're okay because I'm not just going to send you anywhere and people treat you that way because I hear a lot of in staffing and just business owners period show up. So
Mhm.
do that pop up. You want to make sure that they know that this is my business and this is my she works for me, and I want to make sure your environment is the best for my associate, my employee.
Yeah.
So when you start showing up, they walk a little bit differently.
The best it can be, because remember, this is healthcare, so there's no, really no ideal situation, to be honest with you. But I will say this: as a nurse, I still work in the field, so
Okay.
I don't go in and say I'm the owner. They don't know what I look like. So
Okay.
I go in and I work a regular shift just like a nurse. And I'm able to see, it's almost like undercover boss. You know what I mean? Like how you go
Yeah.
into these, places. So a lot of times I've worked side by side by some of my staff, or I'm the only staff that's there. And I see the things that are going on for myself. I guess that's one of the benefits that I have of being a nurse, is that I get to actually go as well. So a lot of times I'll work a shift at a new facility that we take on a contract. If it's in my city, I'll work a shift there. I
Where
don't
are
mind.
you located? Where are you located?
Now I'm in Georgia.
Ah, Atlanta.
Atlanta. Yeah. Hot.
Atlanta, Georgia. A lot going on in Atlanta, girl. You're in the right place right now.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in Atlanta.
So I know you shared that you teach other nurses how to leave their bedside burnout, right? So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit more how you help elevate others to step into their greatness, as Neo says. I love Neo. So how do you teach people, other nurses, to get into this particular field?
Well, just like how, we were talking earlier and you were saying, what, do I have to be a healthcare, professional? And I'm like, no. So, my goal, obviously, as far as anything you do is a niche down, right? So I focus because the goal is to kind of alleviate nurses. That's my background, that's in my blood, like a soror, that's in my blood. But the goal is to teach people how to be able to come into this business, how to get it up and running, how to get the contracts, how to be able to recruit, how to be able to retain their nurses, how to hire their nurses, negotiate their pay, and et cetera, et cetera. So basically, anyone that's looking to come into the healthcare space, I mentor a full program. I mean, teaching them, structuring, getting the business up and running, building their business credit, utilizing OPM, other people's money in order to factor their company out or just alleviate some of that cash flow to allow them to start to scale. I teach them to add additional things to their business as well, like Airbnb, And we'll get into that. Airbnb, as far as with contract nurses, you can a lot of times negotiate that into your price and use your own self Airbnb with your own nurses. I teach them how to make additional income once they're also up and running to keep everything kind of in-house. I teach them also personal credit, because you're gonna need that. Anybody that's telling you, well, hey, come start this business and you ain't gonna need no money, and you're gonna be up and running and making six figures, that is not the truth. Child, you have to have some credit. You got to build these things out. It's going to take time, in order for you to get larger amounts of money. You can still do the business, but everything needs to work in hand, so that as you're pushing and as you're scaling, you have these options available to you. This is a business you got to work. It don't work itself. You know what I mean? You have to build this. This is a long-term business for sure.
So you're actually hands-on with your client. So if they wanted to take the course and have, say, what, I want to learn from her. She is the person I want to learn from. Because I know you have those that, they're niche in staffing agencies, are teaching you how to launch staffing agencies, but then that there is that middle. And I love that you said business credits, personal credit, basically
Mhm.
how to get that capital for that. So are you walking? So do you also help them get that first client? Because that's a piece that for me it was like, okay, I can't do this. Like, okay, if this is something I can't do, I don't know what's next. And it goes beyond just saying, hey, it's the logo, it's the website, and now you know how
That's
to do
true.
the thing. But now it's time to do the thing, and that's the intimidation piece. So are you helping them with
Mhm.
that as well, or what does that look like?
So when they come in, I help them get their first contract, because I also teach them vendor management systems as well. But I give them a way to make money right off the bat. So I have a couple of things up under my arm, which is sort of kind of like your first contract, and they can go on staff for these positions. And a lot of these positions are paying very high bonuses, like 14 to 22K for placing one person. So I basically put them in a place where they can start recruiting and making money off of the bat. Because as you said, the contracts are the hardest absolute thing to get, but we definitely go through marketing. I'm not just bringing you in and just like, oh, start the business and you just gonna be good. And you have other folks that will charge you to come back and learn how to do the contracts. Now we gonna do all of that in one whop. And so now I teach it live in 6 weeks. So we go through 6 weeks of starting the business. We go through personal credit, and I have, kind of like as a side note, if they don't want to do their own personal credit, I have a side company that does the personal credit. They ain't got to do it. If they don't want to, once they've built their business credit, I have someone that does the funding that we already have partnerships. So I have all of these things in place so that you're not just there by yourself. You don't want to worry about none of that. Cool, don't do it. Just do the agency part of it. We have someone on the team to do the other part of it. Let's get everything in sync so you can really get up and running. So
Right.
definitely. Yeah.
So you have partnerships with all of the back office, the front office. So the person that actually will pay out your contract or pay the salary or the wages. I think that's the terminology.
Yeah.
I like that. You might be the girl. Look, I like what you got going on because
Well, I'm building
I've
it.
heard the stories. I've been a part of it. That's gonna be another conversation we'll have offline. But have a conversation because it takes a lot to build a business and to make sure that it's sustainable and that you can actually get the seven figure, eight figure, uh, business that you want. And
Yeah.
because it's intimidating in the beginning, it's
Mhm.
intimidating without even being staffing agency, just building something from scratch and you don't know anything about it. And to hear that you're saying, you know what, I want to teach you and I want to make sure that you do this right, the right way. There's steps to this thing, and you have a mentor that is going to make sure that you're successful. You don't hear that a lot. People just want your money. And I would like you have to sow into people before you reap. And that's how you do it. Because now if I know I'm going to get my return on my investment through you, then I'm
Mhm.
going to refer the next person to you. And that's what
Mhm.
I think a lot of coaches fail to realize is that you just don't want to launch a course and you're not teaching anybody or they're not getting the result faster.
Mhm.
Like you say, hey, immediately you want to see a result, you're going to be able to get your money. And that way they can say, you know what? Sophia has what you need. If you want to start this business, I'm going to refer you. And I
Mhm.
like that. I like what you said there.
If you put the
Good.
work in, because you know you
You
got
have to put the work
you
in.
got to put
Yeah.
the work in. It's not gonna just fall in your lap. Some people want to buy a program and somehow they think it's gonna, just fall out the sky. And then you have the serial course buyer. They, got course after course after course after course.
Mm.
I have just curated where I've struggled, where I've failed, programs that I've invested in, money that I've invested, and then walked away like, okay, what was that? I still need some more help. I still need this. I still need that. I'm still not getting it. This is not working for me, whatever the case may be. And so it's like everybody doesn't want to fix their own credit. Even though you're offering it, some people are doers, they will do, but other people don't. So what about those people? How do you help them? A lot of people will teach you how to set up a business, but not in the appropriate way so that they are ready for business funding. You know what I mean? I teach people how to set up their state accounts. That's something that most people don't even teach you, because when you start, who gonna take out the taxes? And a
Right.
lot of people start businesses, but they don't even register with the state and federal so that they can be able to prepare to pay, their workers, but also, their taxes. Like I literally go through the nitty-gritty because I know what it was like when I was in those shoes. I had to figure all of that out. Nobody
Yeah.
helped me. So what can I do to put everything into this program to make sure that a person walks away and they literally have a business in a course, not a business in a box, but literally a business in a course where if they follow these things, they will have a up and running staffing agency that they could make income this that way, in order to, that I'm showing you that I've went through all of these things. I'm bringing them back to my community to give them to you to make sure that you're successful. So the only way you ain't successful is if you just don't do the work. If you just brought the
Yeah.
course and you wanted to give me your money, okay, and you didn't want to do the work, that's different. But if you're doing the work, you're getting something out of it for sure. You
Yeah.
definitely can get this started.
Franchise tax fees it's real. So you need to know what that means when you talk about controller. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a real thing.
But people don't
Okay.
talk about that, you know what I mean? So it's important. I try to get they say, figure out what's missing and then you bring that to the table, because something has to set you aside from everybody else.
So do you mind sharing what the investment is for your course?
Do I mind sharing with so
Right now. So if they're
right now,
listening
right,
and as of today, the investment will cost them about what?
I am not cheap, okay? So when I started, I was at 5K. And now with the next cohort that I'm running in February, if you act now and jump up on it, your girl will hook you up for 3K. But after that, we going back to 5K. And there was a time when I wouldn't even charge that. It was a time when I'm like, oh, I just want to charge $1,000 and yada yada yada. But what I realize is my time. I have literally invested over 2 years into this program before I even brought it to the forefront. I've been working on this for a long time, and I am still very hands-on with it. I'm still coming on, talking to you, giving you everything. Like when you come into this program, all of your forms are ready for you. I help you register with the government so that you can start taking government contracting. I give you a capability statement. All you got to do is plug and play. I give you an actual staffing business plan. All you got to do is plug and play. You get all the forms you need: hepatitis, confidentiality, all the nurse skill checklist that you need. Like, you're getting so much power packed into this course. Trust me, it is worth way more than what I'm charging. But because I am still, building, meaning building out the course, getting the bugs out, seeing what works best, 3,000 is more of where I want to be right now, because I want people to pop out successful. You know what I mean? It's not just about taking somebody's money. It's about actually seeing people do the work, seeing them be successful, and coming back and seeing the success that they do have. So for my February cohort, we will be at 3K.
Good. February, people. So those my listeners and viewers. She said February. If you want to get in on her course, $3,000. She is basically saying, start your 2024 off right. And she's making it affordable for you to change your life. If you're wanting to actually start your business, have a mentor, get into a course where you have the actual ability to see it work with someone. You have to do the work. Nothing is cheap, nothing is going to be given to you. We have to do the work to make sure that you reap the benefit of when someone is wanting to help you. When the teacher shows up, it's time to do the work. All right. So, Sophia, what is next for you and your brand?
Ooh, we are doing so much. With the mentorship, I just started that. So I am grooming, that's my baby. And actually, I love and enjoy that more than anything. I guess I just love teaching. But that is going long and strong. And eventually I want to automate it so that it's obviously not whenever I'm doing it hands-on, but more of an automated thing. Facebook community is something that I am building, a community of nurses and just people who came into the cohort. That way everybody can just exchange and talk. That's also a way that agency owner can, meet other nurses that may not want to own an agency, but they want to work for your agency because you're in their city. So it's kind of like a co-networking space that I am working on. Also, I am trying and working on expanding to Texas. That is our next that is our next goal to expand in Texas. I'm looking at that right now in the next 6 months. We also will be adding some additional services like private home duty, possibly some lab services. And as I'm going through all of those processes, they will also be available to all of my students, because if I've done it, trust and believe it's going to be available to you, and not at an extra cost. It will just literally be bringing it back like, hey, I added these additional services. You can as well. This was my process. So the goal is to build as I go through and fail for you or succeed. It's bringing it back to the community and also helping them add those additional things as well. So like I said, lab services, like probably DOT drug testing, different things like that, and also private home care we want to add on to the agency as well.
All right. That is good. See, growth. So you're not only going to be able to get in, she's saying, you know what? I'm going to make the mistakes for you so I can learn to teach you what not to do and
Yes.
continue the growth together. Again, partnership is key when you're dealing with business with anyone. And she has basically laid out everything for you. And I love that
Yeah.
about her spirit. She's saying she's already done the work. And all you want to do is basically just say yes. If you raise your hand to someone that is willing to help you succeed, all you got to do is show up for yourself. So, how do the listeners and the viewers contact you? What is the name of your course? What is the name of your staffing agency if they're wanting to work in the Atlanta area? How do they get in contact with you?
Definitely. So our website for the agency is nurselinks.com. And you can find us there. And also for if you want to get in touch with me or the mentorship, you would look me up on all platforms. It's Sophia, Sophia underscore millions, like the money. Y'all heard it right. And if you click on that, follow a sister and support as well. But if you click on the link in my profile, it has everything I'm doing, from my ebooks on Airbnb and everything else I'm doing, to the mentorship, wait list and everything else that we're doing. Like it's all there. So Twitter, TikTok, all of that, Sophia Millions.
Perfect. I will also put that into the show notes for those that want to actually reach out. So it'll be in the show notes if you want to get in contact. But this is great. I love that you said yes. Thank you so much once again. This is another great episode of the Sly Ed Experience podcast, where successors lead you through education and determination. I am your host, your girl, Latasha Sly.